How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
It's an open line Friday. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the fruited plain. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be delighted to have you today, and you get to help shape the show with your topics. It's also the day after the summer solstice, which means, so 2 days ago, yesterday, and today are the 3 big days to play golf because there's so much sunlight. So the moment the show concludes, I'm headed to a golf course where I intend to be until it's too dark to play golf. Just going to go around and around with some friends. Smell like an ashtray by the time it's done. I'll need the Eden Pure Thunderstorm in my car to get the cigar smoke out. It's going to be fun. Now, let's have fun together. We got a lot of news to get to, and this is actually not a fun topic to start the show with, but it's kind of necessary because it actually is, I think, the biggest news story of the day. This is one of those horrific things where you get attacked for politicizing tragedy when you talk about them, but it's necessary to talk about these things. An illegal alien from El Salvador has been charged with the rape and murder of Rachel Morin. He entered the country, was a gotaway last year. They got him, processed him, and then let him back out. When he first crossed the border, he crossed undetected. An Ecuadorian illegal alien has been charged with the rape and kidnapping of a 13-year-old girl in New York City. He had been caught and released in 2021. 2 illegal aliens from Venezuela have now been charged with murdering 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary in Houston. They were caught and released at the border this year. Infuriatingly, the Associated Press has the story of these 2 men. Let me read to you part of this. 2 men who were seen on surveillance footage with a 12-year-old girl before her body was found in a Houston creek earlier this week were arrested Thursday in her death, police said. Juan Jose Rangel Martinez, 21, and Franklin Jose Pina Ramos, 26, each face a charge of capital murder in the killing of Jocelyn Nungary, police said. The medical examiner has determined her cause of death was strangulation. It was unclear if the 2 suspects had attorneys yet to speak on their behalf. Jocelyn's body was found in the shallow water of a creek Monday morning. Police said she had sneaked out of her nearby home the night before. Police said surveillance footage showed the men meeting up with Jocelyn before walking to a convenience store with her. The 3 then walked to the bridge together where Jocelyn was killed. Sexual assault exams are pending. Nowhere in this story does the Associated Press bother to tell you that these 2 men are illegal aliens. The police said they were in the initial reports. The Associated Press doesn't want you to know. They left it out. It was an editorial choice of the Associated Press to not tell you these 2 men were illegal aliens. An undocumented, that's the headline they wanted to use in this press, illegal alien. Jose Pauline Pascal Rios is accused of beating a woman and her young son to death in Tallapoosa County, Alabama. 11 counts, capital murder and abuse of a corpse in Alabama. 5 men from Mexico and Honduras have been arrested and charged with kidnapping after a teenage girl reported missing from Cass County, Indiana, was found with them in Missouri. According to court documents, Marlon Aguilar of Honduras and 4 other men were booked in the Macon County Jail after Missouri Highway Patrol located the girl during a traffic stop. Missouri State Highway Patrol became aware of the missing girl on June 17th after she was reported missing June 16th. According to court documents, the teenage girl's father reported her missing. These men all turned out to be illegal aliens, too. 8 illegal aliens have been arrested by the federal government from Tajikistan, all of them illegal aliens who crossed the border, and they have ties to ISIS, and were caught after discussing making bombs. In Olympia, Washington, an Uber driver who turns out not to be a legal alien picked a young woman up at the bar when she was too drunk to take herself home, and the Uber driver manipulated the app to claim that he had taken her where she needed to take, drove her to an area, and abused her, raped her. The left's answer to all of these things is, well, you know, immigrants to this country are less likely to commit crime than the people here. Now, that's not necessarily the case, actually. First of all, you've already broken the law crossing over illegally, but beyond that, not every state is able to keep up with the residency of people when they go into the crime database, and they don't often update it. So it's actually not really known, but that's the talking point for the left. The left says, and let's take it at face value without quibbling with them, let's take it at face value, that people who are here legally are more likely to commit crime than people who are here illegally. Okay, fine. But the illegals are still committing crimes, so the rate of crime is still going up. Even if they commit less crimes than those who are here legally, they're still committing more crimes for us to deal with, and all of these people would be alive had those illegal aliens not been here. And I didn't even mention Laken Riley from Athens, Georgia, who is out for a run, murdered by an illegal alien. All of these people are here because of Joe Biden. They're all here because of Joe Biden. None of these people crossed over when Donald Trump was president. They all crossed over when Joe Biden became president, because Joe Biden wanted to make sure everybody south of the border knew that he was there now, not Donald Trump, and that things were changing. He repealed all of the executive orders that Donald Trump had put in place to keep those people out. Rachel Morin is now dead because of it. A 13-year-old girl in New York City is dead because of it. Laken Riley is dead because of it. Jocelyn Nungary is dead because of it. How many more Americans are going to die because of Joe Biden? We have illegal aliens in this country plotting terrorist attacks against the United States because of Joe Biden. Yes, because of Joe Biden. I occasionally get crazy emails from crazy people who are very quick to be offended. Yesterday on the program, I said that this is not about Barack Obama. These are not things Barack Obama did. This is all on Joe Biden. And some guy, crazy listener, emails, I can't listen to you anymore. You tried to excuse Barack Obama. You keep making these mistakes, and And this is on Barack Obama. No, the hell it's not. None of these people crossed the border when Barack Obama was president. And you can accuse Barack Obama of pulling the puppet strings and all, but the point of the matter, and the reason I said it, is because Joe Biden is president of the United States. Stop trying to absolve Joe Biden of responsibility. People on the right want to concoct some conspiracy. It's not really Joe, it's Barack Obama. People on the left want to say, actually, it's Donald Trump who enabled this. No, this is all on Joe Biden's. The blood is on Joe Biden's hands. Joe Biden got rid of the executive orders that Donald Trump put in place. These people started flooding the border, and all Joe Biden has done since is performance. His executive order that supposedly shuts the border, it's not shutting the border for anybody. They're still coming. The wave of humanity is still coming across the border on a daily basis. They're overwhelming cities. They're overwhelming towns. They're overwhelming American taxpayer resources, and they're killing American citizens. They're plotting terrorist attacks. And why, for the love of God, is this not an ad campaign by the Republicans on a daily basis to remind people every single one of these individuals would be alive had Joe Biden not caused a porous, open border? This is a campaign issue. You're not exploiting deaths. You're telling the truth. Joe Biden says Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Joe Biden's policies are literally getting Americans killed. It's not just that Joe Biden is driving up the cost of your groceries. Joe Biden's policies are causing Americans to die, to be raped and murdered by illegal aliens taking advantage of Joe Biden's border policies. This is absolutely an issue for campaign 2024, and the Republicans should make it an issue. It was one of the most effective moments of Donald Trump's presidency. He brought in parents whose daughter had been murdered by MS-13, by the gang, and talked about the terror that this gang is bringing to parts of the United States, where even local law enforcement, American law enforcement, is scared to go into some parts of some neighborhoods because the gang is so violent, they'll target the police officers' families. It's time to bring that back. It's time to highlight that. Rachel Morin, remember her name. Raped and murdered by an illegal alien. Jocelyn Nungary. Remember her name. Raped and murdered by two illegal aliens from Venezuela, and remember, the Associated Press wanted to bury that fact. The Associated Press, for which multiple other newspapers and news organizations around the country will get the wire feed and run the story, left out the fact that it was illegal aliens because they're trying to cover for Barack Obama. They are for Joe Biden. Look, here I go. They're trying to cover for Joe Biden. They're trying to protect Joe Biden. They do not want Joe Biden held responsible for the consequences of his actions, so they don't want you to know. They do not want you to understand it's illegal aliens doing this. Laken Riley. Remember her name. Killed by an illegal alien in Athens, Georgia, who came here while Barack Obama or while Joe Biden was president. Came here while Joe Biden was president, went to New York City. Alvin Bragg let the murderer out of jail in New York City. The guy made his way to Georgia. These are progressive policies coming home to roost. George Soros funded prosecutors letting these people out of prison, but Joe Biden refusing to secure the border in the first place so that they can come here. Americans are dying. And the left-wing talking point that, well, Americans are actually more violent than the illegal aliens, may be so, but all of these people were killed by illegal aliens, not by Americans. All of these people would be alive had Joe Biden done his primary job as president of the United States, to protect American citizens. He failed, and the Associated Press and others are now trying to cover up for him and bury the fact that these are illegal aliens killing these people. The fact of the matter is, Joe Biden should be held accountable, and I hope like hell next week at that debate that Donald Trump will hold Joe Biden accountable for his porous border problems. This is an argument the Republicans need to not be scared of, but make it. All of these people would be alive had Joe Biden not won the presidency in 2020, and more people will die if you let Joe Biden stay in office. Greetings, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. Open line Friday, the phone number 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, hey, remember, if you text data to 33777, you can pre-order my book. It'll start dropping next week. The publisher told me they're actually having to print some more because of the pre-order. So keep it up, please. You help me. You make me look good. If you text data to 33777, order the book. It's on sale right now with a actual discount at Amazon applied for the pre-order. So you can get it. You'll enjoy it. You Shall Be as Gods comes out next week. We'll get to the Rahimi case here at the bottom of the hour from the Supreme Court. Big case today, 8-1. Clarence Thomas, the lone dissent. I have read the case and the dissent. We'll get to it right now, though. This. Remember that the Biden administration told you that it won't cost us anything to forgive student loans, that taxpayers aren't on the hook for it. They came up with this whole smoke and mirrors routine about it. Here's the headline at CNN. Student loan relief contributing to 27% jump in projected federal budget deficit, according to the Congressional Budget Office. It will be $400 billion larger than the agency estimated, hitting $1.9 trillion for the fiscal year. Looking longer term, the nation's debt will approach $57 trillion by 2034, nearly $2.5 trillion higher than expected, as spending on Social Security, Medicare, and interest payments soar and revenue fail to keep pace. The growing imbalance is expected to loom large over upcoming congressional budget and tax battles. Most of the spike in fiscal 2024 deficit stems from four factors that are expected to boost projected spending. The largest is the $145 billion increase that's partly due to changes the Biden administration made in student loan repayment plans and a new forgiveness program that would waive some accrued interest for millions of borrowers. You got that? Those of you whose student loans are being bailed out, who were told that, hey, this isn't on the taxpayers, yes, we're all now going to suffer for the decisions you made and Joe Biden's decision to bail you out. We are being driven to bankruptcy, one fiat act by this administration at a time. They told us this would cost nothing. It's going to increase $145 billion, our debt. Absolutely absurd. Now, what is not absurd is my Eden Pure Thunderstorm. I have it in my car. I'm going to go play golf, smoke multiple cigars on the golf course, sweat profusely, and probably stink. And the Eden Pure Thunderstorm will protect my car from the noxious smells my buddies and I are going to have this afternoon. And it'll work for you as well. It wipes out odors. In a car, you can plug it up with a USB cord. You can also plug it up into the wall. It gets rid of smoke odors. That's what we're going to need it for. Body odors. That's what we're going to need it for. Wet dog odors, litter box odors, frying odors, cooking odors. Philip cooked shrimp last night and the whole house stunk, he said. I said, you should fire up the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. It wipes out those odors. I know because I use it in my house when I cook shrimp inside so my wife doesn't kill me. It works right now. You can get 3 of them and save $200. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3, EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm, it's an air purifier and an odor eliminator. It works. You can get 3 of them and save $200 upstairs, downstairs, your basement, wherever you need them. EdenPureDeals.com. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, it is an open line Friday. Let us chat about what the Supreme Court has done. It's an 8-1 decision. You know, there's all this hysteria out there. The left is all worked up into a frenzy about how the Supreme Court is corrupt and off the rails, and essentially they're trying to rough the refs. They don't control the institution, so they seek to destroy the institution. And yet the court has not really had a whole lot of mini decisions this year that were in a 6-3 conservative progressive split. Today, the Supreme Court released United States versus Zaki Rahimi, and it was decided 8-1, Clarence Thomas being the sole dissent. And I have to tell you, this is one of those cases where you read the majority opinion, you're like, they got it right in this case. And you read the dissent, and you're like, he got it right in this case. Clarence Thomas is right in his arguments, and also I think the majority got it right in this case. John Roberts wrote the majority. The bigger issue in this case are the concurrences. Let me read you, and I want to read you, and the reason I want to read it to you is because John Roberts writes in such an easy to understand way. He's one of the best legal writers, writing in a way that the average person can understand it. As part of his, you may not like him, but it's part of his political philosophy and legal philosophy that the people should be able to understand the judges. In December of 2019, Zaki Rahimi met his girlfriend, CM, for lunch in a parking lot. CM is the mother of Rahimi's young child, AR. During the meal, Rahimi and CM began arguing, and Rahimi became enraged. CM attempted to leave, but Rahimi grabbed her by the wrist, dragged her back to his car, and shoved her in, causing her to strike her head against the dashboard. When he realized a bystander was watching the altercation, Rahimi paused to retrieve a gun from under the passenger seat. CM took advantage of the opportunity to escape. Rahimi fired as she fled, although it's unclear whether he was aiming at her or the witness. Rahimi later called CM and warned her he would shoot her if she reported the incident. Undeterred by the threat, she went to court to seek a restraining order. In the affidavit accompanying her application, she recounted the parking lot incident as well as other assaults. She also detailed how Rahimi's conduct had endangered their son. Although Rahimi had an opportunity to contest her testimony, he did not do so, and on February 5th, 2020, a state court in Tarrant County, Texas, issued a restraining order against him. The order, entered with the consent of both parties, included a finding that Rahimi had committed family violence. It also found that this violence was likely to occur again, and that Rahimi posed a credible threat to the physical safety of CM and the son, AR. Based on these findings, the order prohibited Rahimi from threatening CM or her family for 2 years or contacting her during the period except to discuss the son. It also suspended Rahimi's gun license for 2 years. If Rahimi was imprisoned or confined when the order was set to expire, the order would instead terminate either 1 or 2 years after his release date, depending on the length of his imprisonment. In May, however, Rahimi violated the order by approaching CM's home at night and began contacting her through social media. In November, Rahimi threatened a different woman with a gun, resulting in a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And while Rahimi was under arrest for that assault, the Texas police identified him as the suspect in a spate of at least 5 additional shootings. The first arose from Rahimi's dealings in illegal drugs. After one of his customers started talking trash, Rahimi drove to the man's home and shot into it. While driving the next day, he collided with a car, exited his vehicle, and proceeded to shoot at the other car. 3 days later, he fired his gun in the air while driving through a residential neighborhood. A few weeks after that, Rahimi was speeding on a highway near Arlington, Texas, where a truck flashed its lights at him. Rahimi hit the brakes and cut across traffic to chase the truck. Once off the highway, he fired several times towards the truck and a nearby car before fleeing. 2 weeks after that, Rahimi and a friend were dining at a roadside burger restaurant. When the restaurant declined his friend's credit card, Rahimi pulled a gun and shot it into the air. The police obtained a warrant to search Rahimi's residence. Then they discovered a pistol, a rifle, ammunition, and a copy of the restraining order. He was indicted on 1 count of possessing a firearm while subject to a domestic violence restraining order. Now, here's what you need to know. Rahimi had this restraining order. He received notice and an opportunity to be heard. The order prohibited from communicating or threatening his girlfriend. and it included a finding that Rahimi represented a credible threat to the physical safety of CM and the child. And the order explicitly prohibited him from the use, attempted use, or threatened use of physical force. He wanted to dismiss the case, claiming that it violated his right to keep and bear arms, that in the way he proceeded with the case was to say that the particular statute that he is fighting, 18 USC 922 G8, is a federal statute that prohibits an individual subject to domestic violence restraining orders from possessing a firearm if that order includes a finding that he presents a credible threat to the physical safety of an intimate partner or child of the partner or individual. So that's the guy. He's a bad guy. The statute says you are not allowed to possess a gun if you are subject to a restraining order that includes a finding that you are a credible threat to the physical safety of an intimate partner or a family member. He kept the guns despite the restraining order and used them repeatedly on others, firing at others, and he was arrested and charged. And what he wanted to do is argue that this law is unconstitutional on its face. Now, here's what you need to understand. There are two paths to argue a law is unconstitutional. One is to argue that the law is unconstitutional on its face, meaning there's no way under any circumstance the law is constitutional. The other is to argue that as applied in that circumstance, it's unconstitutional. There is a much broader standard when you try to say the law itself is unconstitutional. Now, why is that? Because as Chief Justice Roberts says, when law and constitution collide, the path of the judge is to find harmony, not to find conflict. It is presumed that when the legislature acts, the legislature is acting constitutionally. And what John Roberts does is he goes through a history of U.S. law to the very beginning of the country and notes that there have always been restrictions on people's right to carry firearms. In the colonies, there were restrictions on New Year's on people's ability to use firearms drunk. A number of the colonies had prohibitions on concealed carry. And some colonies precluded criminals, once they got out of prison, from owning firearms for a certain period of time. And what 8 of the 9 members of the Supreme Court hold is that this is a situation like those, that this man was a physical threat to someone else. He obviously had issues where he was using his gun at others during that time period that he was under a restraining order, and he clearly had ill intent towards his girlfriend. Therefore, it is rational and reasonable for the United States government to say, you can't have a gun while you're under this order, buddy. And yet, not only did he have a gun while under the order, he was using the gun to fire it at anyone who made him mad. It's a reasonable decision. But so too is Clarence Thomas's dissent. Because Clarence Thomas points out that the majority is actually missing the big picture. Clarence Thomas is pointing out that what the government was trying to argue in this case is that the Supreme Court's gun reasoning in Heller, which gave the right to bear arms, and Bruin, which applied it to the states, that the court's reasoning was flawed, and the government was trying to get the Supreme Court to revise its thinking. And what Clarence Thomas points out accurately is that the government's argument the whole way through is that anyone the government deems to be a threat can have their arms taken from them. He says the law in question strips an individual of his Second Amendment rights. The statute's breadth cannot be overstated. For one, it criminalizes nearly all conduct related to covered firearms and ammunition. Most fundamentally, possession is prohibited except in the rarest of circumstances. Courts of appeal have understood possession broadly, upholding convictions where a person picked up 3 firearms for a few seconds to inspect it, or made direct contact with a firearm by sitting on it. They've construed the law to bar constructive possession of a firearm, including, for example, ammunition found in a jointly occupied home. Moreover, the statute captures virtually all commercially available firearms and ammunition. It prohibits possessing a firearm in or affecting commerce, and receiving any firearm or ammunition which has been shipped or transported in interstate or foreign commerce, as courts have interpreted that nexus. If a firearm or ammunition has at any point crossed interstate lines, it's regulated by the law. The statute goes even further by regulating not only ammunition, but also all constituent parts of ammunition. The sweeping prohibitions are criminally enforced with punishable up to 15 years in prison. And the government makes a sweeping argument. Listen, here's the problem here. Rahimi is a terrible, terrible, and deeply unsympathetic person for which to try to build a Second Amendment rights case around. And yet he tried. And he lost. But Clarence Thomas is also right that what the government is trying to do in the case is alter the Second Amendment understanding. He writes, the government tries to rewrite the Second Amendment to salvage its case. It argues the Second Amendment allows Congress to disarm anyone who is not responsible and law-abiding. Not a single member of the court adopts the government's theory. Indeed, the court disposes of it in half a page for good reason. The government's argument lacks any basis of our precedents and would eviscerate the Second Amendment. The government's position is a bald attempt to refashion this court's doctrine. Clarence Thomas is defending the Second Amendment, pointing out the government's trying to get the court to upend its logic, and he's pointing out accurately the court didn't take the government's bait, even though the court upheld the law. He's right. It's what the Biden administration tried to do, was to get the Supreme Court to rethink its Second Amendment jurisprudence. In fact, Sonia Sotomayor writes a concurrence saying she thinks they should rethink it. She still thinks that Bruen and Heller are terrible case law, and she would vote to reject them today. So much for stare decisis. Honestly, the most interesting part of the entire case, though, is that Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett have concurrences. The only one who doesn't write separately from the Chief Justice is Sam Alito. You know, the radical appeal to heaven Sam Alito. He's totally fine with John Roberts' logic. But Barrett and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch have these concurrences, and they're arguing over how to use history to get to original intent. It's a very academic discussion, but one that's deeply relevant to show that actually originalism and historic intent have a basis beyond just the whims of the right. And they're arguing over it, which suggests that there are other cases coming where their interpretations of how to use historic precedent is going to matter deeply. And I suspect that may come with the case about the president, President Trump, and whether or not he's got immunity. This fascinating decision. I think the court got the case right, but I also think Clarence Thomas got his dissent right. It's one of those fascinating cases. The bottom line is here. The Supreme Court of the United States says that if there is a state restraining order against you that rules that you are a threat to the physical harm of an intimate loved one, that the government can bar you from possessing firearms during the tenure of that order. And Clarence Thomas's dissent is essentially saying, okay, but this does not give the government license to just take people's guns away willy-nilly. Now, Hillsdale College is committed to constitutionalism. It's a great institution, and they want to build a relationship with you, but they also want to know what you think about the presidential selection process under the Constitution, the Electoral College in particular, as some states go to war against it and try to alter it through an interstate compact, which, interestingly enough, there was a Supreme Court case today that seems to suggest that won't fly. The Supreme Court today had another case where Texas and New Mexico essentially agreed to do something with water. They didn't get Congress's sign-off on it, and the Supreme Court says, sorry, can't do it because you didn't get Congress sign-off on your interstate compact. This might apply on the Electoral College. Interesting case. And Hillsdale College wants to weave it all together and find out your information. Go to ericforhillsdale.com today. Take their survey on presidential selection, ericforhillsdale.com. Go check out Hillsdale College, find out about them, learn more about them. It's a great institution to support, by the way. They have great, they've got great K through 12 programs as well for classical education. Wonderful school to support, and they want to know what you think on presidential selection. ericforhillsdale.com. ericforhillsdale.com. One last point I need to make on the Rahimi case today. You know the biggest loser besides Rahimi? Hunter Biden. This case completely upends his appellate argument. Greetings. Welcome. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan in Noonan, Georgia. Wherever you are in the nation, they can help you. If you've got a business and you're trying to grow it, you need equipment loans, or you're buying a building or buying a franchise or buying out a business partner or competitor, those are the deals they specialize in. It doesn't matter where you are in the nation. First Liberty Building and Loan makes their own decisions. They want to help your business grow. FirstLibertyGA.com. FirstLibertyGA.com. Joey, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show, Joey.
Hi. Nice to finally talk to you. I heard you talking about all the rulings recently, and I just want to say there needs to be something on the flip side to that, because my ex-girlfriend broke into my apartment, stole my car. I had to go to the law enforcement, get my car back, and then 3 days later she filed for a restraining order saying that I had beat her and brutally assaulted her. So that was served to me, and they told me that I couldn't have firearms anymore. And for months, while I had to prove myself innocent, I didn't have access to anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I think there is a corollary here that if they're going to take people's guns away on these sorts of things, they need to prosecute the people who lied about you to get your guns taken away, because essentially what someone has done is said something that wasn't true to deny you a constitutional right. And yeah, fundamentally, there should be punishment for that too. And I think that's the other side of the coin here. Now, I let me go back to this point on the case today as well, that, you know, Hunter Biden is trying to argue that he wasn't actually taking drugs when he filled out the form to get his gun. Therefore, the law can't apply to him. This case today pretty clearly showing no sirree, Bob. Reasonable statutes are reasonable like that, and you're not going to actually be able to win that argument, Hunter Biden. It's fascinating. By the way, you guys know I hate that Acolyte show. I saw a meme. I got to share it with you. It perfectly sums up how terrible that show is on Disney. That me, an American male, they have totally made boring the concept of lesbian witches in space, and it's something every guy should want to watch, and it's just a terrible show. That's how bad it is. It's so boring. My goodness, it's just terrible.